Floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello everyone. Good afternoon for the people in Japan and good morning and good evening for the rest of the world. My name is Kasumi and I'm AWS Public Sector Startup Business Development Manager. So I'll be starting this event by introducing what the event it is, and also I'm going to introduce what AWS is doing to support public sector startup. I see some people are Japanese, but at the beginning I'm gonna explain in English. So if you don't like to hear in English session, you can just ignore the first part. But for the second part of Investor Connect, we're gonna mainly do in Japanese. So let's start. So welcome node, I'm gonna start. So why we are doing the SDG Roadshow? Okay, so as you might know, at Amazon, we have the leadership principle. We actually have now 16 leadership principle, and last year we added 2 new leadership principle called success and scale broad, bring broad responsibility. So it means like sustainability is really the part of our long-term strategy. And Amazon also made a climate pledge, so which we are committing to reach the net zero carbon emission by the end of year 2040. But sustainability is really go beyond the climate change and recycling the waste, as framed by the United Nations SDG goals. So we are kind of helping the more than 500 edtech and health tech and government startup in Asia Pacific and including Japan. And we are really next year want to focus on the sustainability startup as our effort to support public sector startup. So that's why we are doing this kind of session. And what is this event is about is, so this event is a initiative by AWS and also the startup body, which is our partner. So AWS will sponsor this event by providing the resources like AWS promotional credit and technical expertise. And SDG Innovation Roadshow will feature like keynote speech and investor connect like we're gonna do today. And we're gonna also do the networking session so that startup and investors can engage with each other so that they can talk about sustainability. And our public sector startup support program include cloud technology resources, mentorship and training, networking opportunities with invest and potential customers, which I'm going to elaborate this later in my presentation. And this event is not only in Japan, but we have been in ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan. So Japan, today is the last session of this series of event of SDG Roadshow. And this is today's agenda. As you can see, we have a lot of agendas. So I'm now doing the introduction of this event. And I will also explain the case study of EdStart and Startup Ramp program. And then we're going to move on to the Ask Me Anything session by Kiewai, Director of Jetro, facilitated by Robin. And the second part, we're going to start Investor Connect around 4:40 p.m. in Japan time. So Kei Tamura at AWS will be facilitating the session, and we're gonna have 2 startup pitch by Pablo from Tsunaga EdTech and Justin from Poodle. And after this, we're gonna have a Ask Me Anything session by 2 investors. So Kenichi Sugi-san by Miyabi Ventures and also Setsuo Iuchi-san of Chiyoda Corporation will be joining the session. And lastly, we're going to do the closing and networking session until 6 p.m. Japan time. So if you have any question, you can ask me in the chat, but let me proceed. So these are the list of the speakers today. So I'm going to be moderating this introduction session, and Robin of Startup Body will be moderating the next following session, Jetro KY, and Kei Tamura will be moderating the Investor Connect sessions. And just briefly explaining the AirMeet, this platform, I know some of you and maybe most of you, it's the first time for you to use this platform. So there's a kind of fun things inside. So this is a page I think you are looking right now. So if you see the view schedule button on your left top side, you can see today's agenda. And you can enter the session. So this is a reception area. And you can also change your preferred language in your settings. So you can go to your profile and go to the setting to change the language. I think this is the most fun and exciting part, especially if you are using the AWS. You can get the AWS promotional credit by engaging this event. So you should chat and vote. We're gonna launch poll soon, so you can vote. You can participate in the poll, and you can clap and win the promotional credits. The first prize is AWS promotional credit, $1,000. Second prize is $500 of credit, and third prize is AWS credits, $300. So let's try. And after the first session, we're going to move on to the investor session, and we're going to have a networking at the end. So for the networking session, you can interact with other participants and investors by moving your icons with mouse. So this one we're going to explain again later when we start the networking session. Okay, so the first poll, can you we're going to launch the poll from now. So can you try to answer this question? So question number 1 is, I'd like to meet in this event entrepreneurs, startup employees, investors, mentors, and customers, and all of the above. Can you please answer the question and the vote? I'll wait for a few seconds so that people can answer the questions. Let's see. Okay. Let's wait a bit. Can Rishabh show the result? Is anybody seeing the result of the poll right now? Oh yeah, I see. So okay, so this is a good result. So the 33% of the both participants want to meet entrepreneurs and startup, and 44% in investors. So we are kind of divided, but it's good we have startup participants from startup and investors both. So thanks everyone for joining. Okay, so let me continue my presentations. Okay. So if you need any help for how you can use AirMeet, please type comment in the chat, or you can also reach Robin or Risha via WhatsApp through this number. And lastly, for introduction, you can really get relaxed at this event. You can grab a cup of coffee or any juice, and you can eat snack while during the event. So please feel really comfortable and enjoy this event. And the next poll is can you also answer? We want to understand who you are. Can you answer this poll? So I'm an expert in EdTech, health tech, GovTech, sustainability, and cloud technology, or I'm here to become an expert. So can you answer the poll? We're going to launch the poll again. Okay, Bishop, can you launch the poll? If poll is not appearing, I think I can just move to the. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, can everyone see the poll? So you just answered who you are. Are you from EdTech or Health Tech, GovTech, Sustainability, and Cloud Technology? I'm here to become an expert and submit. And let's wait a while to see the result. Okay. Okay, so we have the EdTech, 44% EdTech participants, and we have a sustainability, 22%, and cloud technology, and I'm here to become an expert, 22%. That's good. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining the poll. Great. Okay, let's move on. So I will be briefly explaining what AWS is doing to support this public sector startup, including the EdTech, HealthTech, and GovTech and sustainability startup. And I'm going to show you some of the case studies. Rochelle, can you close the poll? Okay, so briefly explain, like we have two startup support program called AWS Startup Ramp and AWS EdStart. So AWS Startup Ramp is for public sector startup, including the health tech, aerospace and satellite solutions, and agriculture and agri-tech, smart city, civic tech and digital government, nonprofit and organization and tech. So really broad, to be honest, but we are basically targeting the startup who are serving for public goods. So anything. And our criteria is really if the startup is working with a public sector organization like government or hospital or educational institute, we are willing to support. And we also have the EdStart. So this is more specialized in EdTech. So we are partnering with the global EdTech investors on the educational institute to support EdTech startup. Let me explain a bit more details. And here, like I wanted to launch another poll again. Do you know AWS Cloud? I think everyone know because they are joining this event, but just to know what your image about AWS Cloud, can you answer this poll? Either AWS Cloud is innovating, reducing the cost, AWS Cloud is also startup developing quickly, or net zero by 2040, or all of the above. And the cloud is there's an option of what you see in the sky. Interesting. So let's see how everyone understand about AWS Cloud. And as we know, the AWS is really the infrastructure used by many startup in the public sector. And yeah, we can see the result right now. So yeah, I think the most of the participants answered correct. So all of the above is applicable to AWS Cloud. We are innovating. We are used to reduce the cost, and AWS is used to support startup developing the quickly. Um, and AWS and Amazon is aiming to achieve net zero carbon by 2040. So all of the above. But cloud is not applicable for what you see in the sky. Okay, and more importantly, what benefit startup can receive through our startup support program. So briefly say we're going to provide AWS credit, which is promotional credit you can use for any AWS usage. So up to the 30,000. And we also provide business and technical training and mentoring. We have a meetup event and marketing opportunities and networking opportunities. So for a technical training, so this is what we are doing in Japan. We provide like hands-on training for especially for beginners, let's say about security, or we are doing office hours with our AWS solutions architect. For example, we had a session to explain what AI and ML services AWS provide for some of the startup. So this is a session we are doing, and also we provide the training like actually the public sector focused. So for example, like we provide a GovTech startup how they can, develop the solution based on the LG1, which is the special network requirement to if the startup want to build a solution for local government in Japan. And we also shared like best practices of smart city urban operating system infrastructure, how they architect. So this is some of the example what we are doing in Japan. As I mentioned that we're gonna provide a credit. So it's based on if the startup want to start a new project for public sector, like the new POC project with government, hospital, we are ready to provide a credit. So you can just request through the startup ramp and start. And our partner Startup Buddy is like they are providing the accelerator as a service. So they provide startup academy and tool, mentor and investor networking, fundraising and investing, and their partner benefits worth 150,000. And they also build a startup and goal setting. They are helping with this area. And this is just announcement. They are soon launching the new gamification platform. This is just a preview, but you can check it out there, by subscribing the update. And if you want to know more detail about how AWS and Startup Buddy is together, you can just scan this QR code, or if you just miss this QR code, just send us a chat. We can provide you the link. And you can also register directly with this link, but I can't show this in a really long time. So you can just send us the chat if you want to access this link. And when you apply through the Startup Buddy platform, you can use this program code AWS Start 2022 and AWS Startup Run 2022. And we're gonna launch another poll. What are the AWS Edge Starter, Startup Ramp, and the Startup Ramp Buddy benefits? And Rishabh, can you launch the poll? So you can just quickly answer these questions. Okay. So let's see the result. Okay, let's see. Can you show the result? Oh, networking. Yeah, that's correct. That's totally correct. We're gonna provide opportunity for networking. That's correct. And we also, that's also correct. Startup Buddy Access. The startup is also what we are providing through our partnership. So I think most of people understand really correctly. So let's go next. Yes, so I'm gonna talk a bit about case study. So since I'm running a bit out of time, so we talking really briefly what startup we are supporting through this program. The first case study is Grapha, is the really fast growing the GovTech startup in Japan. So they provide basically the SaaS platform for local government municipalities in Japan. So one of the services is that they provide an app that allows citizens to understand what kind of process and the procedure they need to do the government administrative process. And also they allow citizens to make a reservation at city hall office. Like most of the time they need to wait 1 or 2 hours just to do administration processing at city hall, but they can make an appointment in advance with their platform. So that's a GovTech startup we are supporting. And TXP Medical is a health tech startup that's focused on optimizing the emergency medical care. So basically, they are providing the platform that connect the emergency the staff and also the hospital. So normally, like when the ambulance want to transport the patient to the hospital, they need to communicate with via telephone or paper based. So the communication was really paper based, but they build a platform that allows the emergency care staff to input by OCR and voice typing. So every report is really efficiently delivered to the hospital in a real time. So they reduce the time for a patient to be delivered to the hospital efficient, really, innovatively. And another example is Troll Vision that they are focusing on drones. So they work with local government to design where the drones should fly in that local area, and they use these services to solve local problems, especially like in rural area, the aging society, people living in a remote area cannot access to, let's say, shopping, or they can't access to the hospital, so they deliver the medicine and shopping stuff to by drone to the such rural areas. And another thing is we partner with the local government, like Tsukuba City is the most an innovative city where the many research institute and the deep tech startup are incubated here. We signed a letter of support to support a startup incubated in Tsukuba City, and we are also co-hosting the event to support a startup in Tsukuba. And another thing is we partner with Hamamatsu City, which is also famous for the smart city initiative. So Hamamatsu City built their urban OS operating system on AWS, and we are helping the Hamamatsu City to create a use case and application built on the urban OS. So we are helping this initiative through Startup Realm. So we are currently expanding the partnership with local governments. Okay, and we are also doing the community activities. So this is photos of our meetup last month. So we are doing this kind of meetup event really frequently in Japan. So that's all from me. But before moving on to this session, we just wanted to understand which language do you speak. Can you answer this question? I can speak and understand this language easily. So English only or Japanese only? So or both English and Japanese. And when we see the results, let's move on to the next session. Okay, great. Yeah, so most of the people understand English and Japanese. That's great to hear. And next session will be in English. So, okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to finish the introduction and we're going to move on to the Ask Me Anything session with Jetro KY. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kasumi-san. In the meantime, I'm inviting Kiwai to join the stage. Thank you very much. Actually, your screen share. Can you please shut down your screen share, Kasumi-san?
Am I still doing the screen share? Oh, I should.
Oh, no, not anymore now.
Okay.
So, okay. And I'm gonna hide Kasumi-san from the stage. Just more as a public announcement, my colleagues seem to have some issues with their internet, so that's why the polls come up a little slowly at some point. So I do have to look at some of the notifications that I have coming in. Good morning, Kasumi Kiwaiko from Jetro. Thank you very much for supporting the SDG Innovation Roadshow Japan edition. We got to know each other for the first time, what is it? I guess 2-3 weeks ago. But can you, before we kick off and go into the content for today, introduce yourself and Jetro?
Okay, great. Thank you, Robin. Hello, everyone. I'm Kiwai from JETRO, Japan External Trade Organization. So maybe some of you know about last that we are a Japanese governmental non-profit organization under the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry in Japan. So we are focusing in supporting the trade and investment between Japan and other countries. And myself, I'm currently based in Singapore, and I was stationed in Tokyo till 2020 before the COVID situation lockdown. And my main job is to support the foreign companies who are currently who are interested to enter the Japanese market. Nice to meet you all.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction. So you already mentioned quickly, high level what Jetro does, but can you go a little bit more in detail? If I'm an entrepreneur and or I have a company, what can I come to Jetro for, and what will you help us with?
Yes, thank you. Jetro now is currently focusing mainly in innovation related activities. So there are mainly two portions that we are currently focusing on. One is to create more business opportunity between the Japanese large corporates who are looking for innovative technologies or solutions provided by the foreign tech companies, which can be happening within Japan or outside Japan. And also another portion is to support companies who already have more concrete ideas in entering the Japanese market from the start of the understanding the market in Japan to the more precise strategy in setting up an entity in Japan, where we provide more supporting service in terms of consultation services, market reports, and some business opportunity for them to join in Japan to create collaborations with Japanese companies, and also when after they set up in Japan to further expand within other regions in Japan.
Okay, thank you very much. The part on working potentially together with corporates in Japan, just out of curiosity from my end, but is it quite common for large companies in Japan to also work with smaller companies, for example, startups, or is that quite novel? Like, how does that work?
I would say that for Japan in particular, is still something that is still at a very early stage. Of course, there are already some large companies from Japan who are already actively working with startup companies. And so we do see more movement, especially since the COVID situation, that more Japanese companies are actively looking for solutions that are either within the country from the startup or the foreign startup companies, giving more solutions that will help them to either further expand the market share in Japan or outside Japan.
Okay, interesting. So speaking for myself, right? We have customers in a lot of different countries around the world with the Startup Buddy. But Japan, to me, is always a market that seems to be a little bit different from virtually all the other markets that you can potentially go to. So you, of course, have a lot of experience bringing companies from outside into Japan, and I suppose you get all kinds of standard questions from them all the time. Can you share a little bit about what are some of the points that you should know about if you're a foreign company trying to access Japan?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I would say that the language barrier is still one of the main issues that is hindering some of the foreign companies who are trying to work with the Japanese companies. Although we do see more Japanese companies are willing to communicate in English, but I would say that it's still at a very early stage. And when you go into more detailed discussion, the Japanese language still is the main issue for some of the discussion for the final decision-making process. And understanding it's not only on the language itself, understanding the business culture in Japan is also very important. As you mentioned, it's a very unique market compared to other countries. So a lot of the foreign companies will have to understand the unique business culture in terms of how the decision-making process of the Japanese companies, and also how to work or communicate with them in order to have a very win-win situation approach, and also the timeline in the process of the decision-making to the final decision confirmation is also things that they will need to understand when working with the Japanese company.
Is there maybe also some smart tricks that help overcome those potential problems quicker? Maybe hiring locally, or what have you seen work for companies that try to do that?
Yes, of course, finding the key person is very important. It doesn't really mean that you will definitely need to find a local person there in Japan, but you need to find someone who understands the market itself. So we have seen most of the success cases are they find the key person who are either locally in Japan or even outside Japan, but they are definitely the person who knows the market well, who has certain connections, and also that's why they are the one who will be the one building the team for the Japan market. So I would say that it's quite initial and essential for you to find the right person, which can be either a coordinator that you hire on your own, or it can be a partner that you work in for the Japan market.
Okay. Would the same solution apply for the cultural differences that you need to learn about, or are there, I don't know, maybe specific courses to learn how to behave and things like that?
I don't think there's courses that will really help. We hope that there is, but so that's why organizations like us, like JETRO, or even some local governments try to provide additional supports to foreign companies who tries to enter the market in understanding. And we try to also create a lot of interaction opportunities for foreign companies to interact with the Japanese companies to understand. And in the portion of the business alliances or business or collaborations, we are also trying to create opportunities for them even to work with the Japanese companies first outside Japan to understand about how they work and the whole culture before they even try to enter Japan together.
Okay, yeah. So another thing that's always different when you expand to a new country is rules and regulations. Like I always tell all entrepreneurs that we work with the startup body that our platform can teach you almost everything except local culture, language, and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Are there specific regulations or laws or rules that you need to be aware of upfront when coming from a country, for example, like Singapore? Are there things which are really quite atypical compared to how it's done maybe in a lot of other countries?
Well, I think it differs from different countries, but Japan definitely has a lot of regulations and rules that that are different from other countries, even like Singapore. And it's very important to understand what is required, even though it might not require in your own country, but it might have something additional that you have to do before you enter the market. And even in establishing an incorporation in Japan, there are additional applications that you might have to consider, the timeline as well, to do the calculation to enter the Japanese market. And for certain industry like the health tech industry, or something that is more regulated in Japan, might take a longer time in entering the market. So these are things that you have to do before when entering the Japanese market.
And to find out what specifically applies for your specific business, go to JETRO. Would that be your advice?
Yes, I would say that for most of the government-related regulations, we do have information on hand, or we also provide market information research that we engage research companies to help us to do the information to provide to the companies that we're supporting in English. And we do have advisors who are expert in certain industry that could also further advise the companies in terms of the regulations in the specific industry.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to invite everybody who's listening and watching to also post your questions. On the right side of the screen, you have two options. There's a Q&A button where you can share your question so that I can show it to everyone else. Or you can use the chat. I'm monitoring the chat to see if any questions are coming in there as well. So in the meantime, like I already said when we started our conversation, this event is part of the Sustainability Development Goals Roadshow, which we have organized this past year with AWS APAC. I was wondering, is sustainability a topic that's very important in Japan? What do you see as a trend around this topic, and what should everybody listening and watching know about that?
Well, sustainability, first thing, is a very big word. It covers a lot of different industry in many sectors, and I don't think it's purely for Japan, but it's worldwide that everyone is looking at how about this whole idea about sustainability. And Japan, of course, I think from the very traditional side of for the countries is that being sustainable or reuse or to not to have anything wasted is something that is from the culture in Japan. But of course, because of the social phenomena happening in Japan and in many advanced countries where there is an increase in the aging population as well and the decrease in the working population, and also in terms of the public infrastructure that is also deteriorating. So these are all social issues that will also have a rise ideas or solutions required for that. So that's why sustainability is now a very hot topic in Japan, and I think it's a natural phenomenon where most of the Japanese companies are looking at. But it's not only looking at new things completely to be think of as sustainability. It also has to be things that are to solutions that should be provided to current situation or current business solutions that the company already has, but they are looking for more innovative solutions to help them to further be more sustainable in terms of many areas in the business sector.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the chat and the Q&A. We have about 2 or 3 minutes more left. So if you have any questions for Ms. Kasumi Kiwaiko, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat. So in general, right, there's a lot of things that you will have to think about when considering to make a move to Japan, which we're not going to cover during this session. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you and get more into the details of how to approach this? Should they look you up on a website? Can you share your email? What's the best way to go about it?
Let me share screen if I may.
Of course.
Yes, and well, you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. And this is the I think you can see the contact here, where you could email me at the email, or you could see more further information on our official website, as well as there's an inquiry form that you could send in for your inquiries.
Okay. Maybe you can leave that on screen for a few minutes so that people have time to scan it and to look it up. I did not receive any questions coming in. So I think with that, we're gonna close off this part of the session. We have to open up a new session on AirMeet. Let me just double check what's going on over here. So we have a quick poll here. Please all vote for this one. So the question is, did you find the AMA session with Jethro productive? I hope everybody right. Yes. Okay, so that's 100% score. That's like, this is like the popularity poll that we've put in. So thank you very much, Kiwai, for joining today and supporting the SDG Innovation Roadshow. For anybody who is not based in Japan yet, but is considering to do so, I'll close the poll so that you can see the contact details again. Please get in touch with Jethro, and good luck building your business also in Japan. And with that, we're gonna move to the next session. Rishav, can you make sure that the other people can join the stage? I'm gonna hide you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.